morning. It is Thursday, June 4th. I've got a bunch of stuff to do. It's about 7:30, and let's see, I really felt the need to come on here and run my mouth this morning. And I say that because my plan was, after the last few days, um, I was going to come on live, and I was going to continue reading some more of Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice. I started off, so we're doing the Zoom community conversations, and we're doing them so that they're here on Facebook Live and then also on Zoom so everyone can join us on Zoom. And I'm really trying to figure out what to do with those first few minutes, right? That waiting. So I've got the live set up, but there's really no one in the Zoom room yet, and people are kind of slowly coming in, and I don't want to get started so that we're in the meat of it as people who are like coming in at like 6:15 are so what do I do with those first few minutes? So last night I decided to read Soul on Ice, and I read excerpts about the Negro in Vietnam, and it was ridiculous and painful how much it correlated. Like, if he wasn't talking about LBJ and Vietnam, then clearly he was talking about exactly what we're dealing with today. Um, but we had it all set up. Second week talking about being black in America. Second week making it very clear that this is a very important conversation that needs to happen, and we need to discuss facts and truths and feelings and everything. And there are places where white people need to be a part of the conversation. There's places where white people need to shut up and just listen to the conversation. There's places where there's no place in the conversation for white people at all. And then there are definitely places where white people need to have their own conversations and figure this shit out, because this is your shit. If you don't get it, if you need me, if you need the oppressed to teach the oppressor, then we're even more fucked up than I thought we were, right? So we need each other, and we need to figure out how to get together. And we're at a place right now where people are starting to understand that there's different responsibilities, but that everyone has a responsibility. So before we even got to last night, looking at what's been going on, I had this idea that we might possibly be Zoom bombed, right? Because that's what happens. And it's an important value of mine that we keep those community conversations open to the community. So, how do you do this? Do we put a password on it? Do we do this? Do we do that? We sent out the code about 10 minutes before the meeting started. So there's the poster that went out for the last week that had one code on it. Last night, right before the meeting, a different code went out. The constant contact went out. So if you're on my constant contact list, you got that about 5 minutes before the meeting started, saying this is the code, go on in. Well, they got the code too, and they showed up. Now, if you have been listening to my mouth for a minute or two, you have heard there's a few things I say constantly. And one of those things I say about us as black and brown people, and right now I'm talking about us as black and brown people. That what has separated us are those oceans. What separated us are those boat stops. So the colonizer got in, did what he was going to do, and then just dropped us off all over this earth. And then special forms of racism and classism, and then don't forget we've got to throw all the here I go, right, had to throw capitalism on top of that. But we've got all this nonsense going that stands in the way and creates artificial divisions. So we're talking about being black in America. What comes into my room? A whole bunch of white people playing really loud. There's definitely some Mexican music up in there, but really loud music with Spanish words. I will say that. And the names that were coming in as these people were bombing and just like jumping and screaming, and there was the nigga, 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 that was happening. Like, just all of the ugly shit was happening. There are all of these Latinx names happening, right? And that was when it hit me. Like, first off, the bomb is happening. The noise, the cacophony of noise coming out of my computer was ridiculous. And I'm wondering what it is. And then I see it. And then it's like, oh, yes, thank you, oppressor. Every so often, I need you to do what you do so that I remember that you do what you do. And they were using what they assumed were people from the Latinx diaspora. So our Hispanic and Latinx brothers and sisters, they were pretending to use them to come in and infiltrate us. And I think many of us have been in chat groups, rooms. We've been in places where those black folks come in, and it's a whole lot of fun when you see like some racist white person with their little black icon, and they've created their page, and they've got these ideas on what black people are into, and then they use what they think is African American vernacular, at which point you realize how ridiculously ignorant they are, because they've got no clue that what we use is an actual language. But that's a whole other story, so we're not even going to go there. But They came in and they tried to use us against us. And that immediately, as I'm watching, their Spanish was so sloppy, Drew. It was hilarious. Um, but then I was immediately reminded of Jane Elliott. And if you've ever seen some of the more recent Jane Elliott videos, there's a video of her doing a training, and in it there's a white woman, right? Because there's always white women. And this white woman is not. Let me move out of the sun a little bit. It's not gonna happen. But anyways, there's this one white woman who is so incensed by this training that's happening, by having to admit that there's racism that dwells within her, and guess what, she's just a product of the society, and it is, that she can't take it, and she decides that she's going to stage a revolt, and she's going to get all the other white people to revolt against Jane Elliott and get the hell out of the room, because we're not going to listen to this. So again, you've got a room that's moving and a room that's ready to do some shit, and the white lady who's feeling a thing for the first time decides, nope, can't do it, let's stop it, and I'm going to make everyone stop it. And then Jane Elliott pulls out her Jane Elliottness and stops that shit and just shuts it down immediately. Ooh, that sun is annoying me. I don't know if it's annoying anyone else, but that's really annoying. So let's just do this. But anyway, so then Jane Elliott shuts the whole thing down. Doesn't mention, she reads Woman for Filth and explains to her exactly what is happening and how she's trying to use her white supremacy to shut down conversation and growth, right? So that's exactly what was happening last night. They were using their white supremacy and their little baby neophyte want to be cool, ignorant racism to try to shut us up, and they weren't great at it. So we got rid of them, and that was wonderful. And we had a valuable conversation with a lot of great points coming up, a lot of cool folks talking. When I say cool folks, I mean all of us. A lot of folks interjecting and being a part of the conversation. Um, and then conversation ended, and I'm scrolling through Facebook myself, and yeah, the sun, forget it, whatever. Um, so I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see that my cousin's jewelry store up in Boston has been vandalized. Has been, see, the front windows have been smashed. I'm sure that folks got in there and got themselves some jewelry. Skylight Jewelers has some beautiful, beautiful jewelry. Those moonstones are just amazing. The moon rings, it's beautiful stuff. But he owns a high-end jewelry store up in Boston, and that's my white cousin. So I posted, when we'll get to that, but I posted that as my cousin on my mama's side. Um, so let me tell you about 12-year-old Cammie. I think I talk about her sometimes. I tell you, like, y'all don't even know. But we lived in Somers, Connecticut, all white area out in the middle of nowhere, in this huge ass rambling house, and we just had rooms and rooms and just rooms on top of rooms. And it was the 80s, so we were latchkey kids, which means that mom and dad drove into big fancy Hartford every day, right? So they'd get up in the morning, drive into Hartford, do their work, get in the car, drive way back to Summers, which meant that my brothers and I had every afternoon probably about 4 hours to ourselves just to try to figure out whatever the hell we were going to do. So we had a decent amount of land. So my brothers and I, we all had our own little place. I had my place. I had a clearing in the woods that was my place to go to. I also had the frog ponds that I like to go to. But I was also a 12-year-old kid, which means that I searched through my parents' stuff to try to find something because that's what we do. So I was in the back room one day and just going. The back room was like my mom's art room. So I was going through my mother's stuff because that's what kids do. Parents of little kids, your kids are going through your stuff. That's just what they're doing. You know what you did. So I'm going through my mom's stuff, and I find a letter from my grandmother. And it's a letter from my grandmother, written. I want to say, because I don't really remember right now, but I think the letter was written when my mother was pregnant with me. And it was clear from the letter didn't say, we are disowning you, but the letter said, we're disowning you. And from what I read in the letter, it was implied that there was a check in there, or that there had been money shared in the letter, and just this great disappointment that my mother, and all of the euphemisms, but this great disappointment that my mother was choosing to be in relationship with black people and a black man. So if you've ever heard me really talk about identity development and identity development for marginalized people, put two and two together. At 12 years old, I found out that my white grandparents didn't want anything to do with me and my brothers because we were half breeds, right? And then I started putting things together and realized that as a child, us not going to visit my grandparents in Ipswich wasn't because they lived so far away, but it was because they had no desire to meet us or see us. Um, And that when I drove up to Maine with my mother and we drove on Route 1 and drove by this white house and there was a woman sitting on the front porch, my mom said, "Oh, that's your cousin Barbie," and kept driving. And we didn't stop. And hearing about and seeing pictures of my grandmother's house when they finally got over themselves and decided to meet us, and seeing photos in my grandmother's house of family events with my cousins, who by then I'd met some of my cousins, and realizing that these were events that happened like, oh, last summer, oh wait, that was 3 months ago, and for some reason our our branch of the family wasn't invited. And I've spoken. I think the last one of these I did. I spoke, and I'm speaking a little bit longer right now than I thought I was going to, because I'm talking about some shit and some real shit, my real shit. Um, but we had our Ohio, who became our Ohio cousins, and we had our cousins Rob and Dee, and we had a relationship with them, and that was beautiful and wonderful. And I love my cousins. I love my cousins. Rob is an amazing musician and just a really cool friggin' guy. So like this interesting kind of Renaissance guy who knows and does a whole bunch of interesting stuff. And his brother D is interesting and wonderful too. He's a wrestler. He's a bodybuilder. He's all this stuff, and he's someone who I don't deal with at all because he married her, and they've decided that Trump is the way to go, and that's what they do. So they're exercise from my life. That's what that is. Kind of like the way my grandparents decided to exercise my mother from their life. But go back to my childhood, and I had my mom's cousin Eddie, right? Eddie Spencer. Now, first off, Eddie's mom, Nisha, was cool ass Nisha. So Eddie's mom, Nisha, was my grandmother's sister. She was younger, and we enjoyed Nisha. Nisha was inappropriate, right? So it was kind of fun visiting and listening to Nisha, because my grandmother was WASP proper, New England WASP proper. So her sister, a little bit fun, loved her. Eddie Spencer was her son, who, when I was a child, when I was a little child, made me my very first piece of jewelry, because that's what he does. He's a jewelry maker. Um, and so he made me a little knot ring, which was cute and wonderful. And it was a thing that I had from my white family that said that I was lovable in their eyes. And time went on and a babysitter stole it, but that's a whole different story. But that's my cousin Eddie Spencer. And in the uprisings in Boston over the last few days, people were pissed. People showed up. Revolutionaries did the damn thing and did what they were supposed to do and fucked shit up. And my cousin's store was one of the places, Skylight Jewelers was one of the places that got fucked up. And now he needs to rebuild. And I have been pushing white people. If you're a white person in my world, how long and how hard have I been pushing y'all to fucking talk about it? To just fucking talk about it. How often have you heard me like, this is not your first time hearing about Cousin D and his piece of shit racist ass wife, right? Because I've made it clear. We got them. We all got shit. We all need to exercise it. We all need to talk about it. We all need to get this shit out in the open. You know? What happens in the dark needs to come to light. All that good shit. Um, but I saw the GoFundMe for my cousin's store. And at first I looked at it and opened it up and saw that he was getting close to his goal. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then there was all of those weird places inside of me, which were glad to see that they're fucking shit up in Boston. Sucks that it was my cousin's store. I wonder who got the jewelry. Like I'm in my mind, I'm really wondering about some engagement rings and who's going to be engaged with one of those Skylight Jeweler rings. And that's a ring of liberation. Like if you stole one of those beautiful ass rings and you're putting it on someone's finger to marry them, I love that idea. And my cousin got screwed. My cousin, his property was damaged in a way that he's got some real monetary hits and losses. And what does Kamora Harrington do at that point? When I see people in need, I'm sharing their stuff. I'm calling people. I'm emailing people. I'm making connections. I'm doing what I can do to make sure that folks' needs are met. And here's my cousin. And I'm over here being me, doing what I do. And what street cred is Kamora Leella Harrington going to lose when she posts, like, clearly, when you go to the website, Skylight Jewelers is doing okay. It's my cousin's store. His stuff costs a pretty penny. And he's a white guy, and I'm over here screaming against capitalism all the time. And I'm saying, yo, if it's a riot, if you need to burn some shit, and you burn my cousin down. Thank you. And I realized, no, let me just fucking make this real and make it just as sloppy. Because as I say all the time, I'm a glorious, fucked up, beautiful, sloppy mess, right? And all of this dwells and all of this is. So, hey, life is complicated. And I shared the GoFundMe and made it very clear and hope that it's completely clear. And if he's reached his goal, if the goal has been attained, don't do nothing with it. But if it hasn't, white folks, help my cousin out. White folks, help my cousin out. Black, brown folks, don't give him a dime. That don't. The time is not now for you to in any way go show Massa that you care about Massa and that this was just all bad, bad, bad. But we all need to be here together, doing what we to do together in order to move on, in order to be in a better place. Sorry, back. Um, but we all have to figure out how to use our voice in different ways. And this right now, this live right now that was rambling and did whatever it is that it did, is my example, my true example of what stepping into brave space in order to share your truth, in order to get to a larger truth is. This chick is asking white people on her page who know her to give money to a white person whose high-end jewelry shop in Boston, Massachusetts, um, was targeted during the uprisings. White people, do that shit. Do the same. Use your voice. Talk about your people. Talk about how you love your people. And talk about how this shit ain't fucking easy. Um, One thing that came up last night, Linda Luz showed up, and she's going to be down at Heaven today at 3 o'clock doing a sign making workshop. Bring your pens, bring your markers, bring your cardboard, bring your spray paint. She's an amazing artist. Her word art is awesome. If you haven't taken one of her word art classes, take one of her word art classes. Show up at Heaven today. I know Ace is going to show up. He's going to have a bunch of water. That's going to be amazing. I know Tree is on his way over there right now. So if you haven't seen the mural that he's putting up, get over there at some point today. I'm pretty sure he's going to finish. He knows he's going to finish it today. He's set. It's going to be stunning. Get over there and check it out. Hang out with Linda Luce. Don't let them steal your voice. Um, and really think about stepping into your truth and how dangerous that can be. And let your mind wander and go to all the places that it's going to go, and the hits aren't going to be that bad. But right now, Linda Luce, yep, you're friggin' awesome. People need to go hang out with you and learn from you. You've got a lot to offer. This person is going to teach you how to do some art. Be in their presence for a little while. You're going to feel it. Um, but we've got a lot to do, and we need to push ourselves, and we need to step into those brave spaces that are not comfortable, but that's where the growth happens. So go do some growth, have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.